As you remember, last week we finished Shir HaShirim. Okay, Baruch Hashem. It's a good feeling, the feeling of completion and finalization. What we're going to do now is to review the entire Megillah, the entire Shir HaShirim. So the Shir is dedicated to Rachel Leah ben Bas Rav Chaim Tzvi, and let's begin. So, Perek Aleph. So our introduction to Perek Aleph is, of course, the parable. Once there was a king, and the king took a woman as a wife who was an ordinary woman, a woman of the ordinary people. And she was virtuous, she was beautiful. He took her to the palace, and she found herself terribly stressed. She discovered that she wasn't happy in the palace, because in the palace you have to be good all the time. You have to be well dressed, and you have to be mannerly. You have to be refined. And it was terribly stressful. And it reached a point where she ran away, and she went back to her native village. But she had been in the palace for a long time. So when she got back to the village looked primitive, and the people vulgar and coarse, because the village was primitive, and the people were vulgar and were coarse. It wasn't her imagination. And they picked up on her feelings about them, her inner repulsion, and they began to persecute her, and beat her, and spit on her, and revile her, and strip her of her clothing. And she realized that she was doomed if she stayed there. But she felt she had no option. She couldn't go back to the palace because she'd run away. She couldn't stay in the village because the cruelty and the harshness was overwhelming. So she was close to despair when the king came. And when he came, she was ashamed to even look at him. And he said, "Don't be ashamed." So she said, "Why not? I betrayed you." And he said, "Because the ketubah that I wrote to you is different than any other ketubah." So she said, "How?" So he showed her, and it said in the ketubah, "No matter how many times you betray me, I'll never betray you." So this is what she was hearing about. So its style, as we've learned, is that it talks about our history with Hashem, our life in the palace, our life in the village, and finally our life back to the palace. So it takes us through our history. So with this in mind, we'll begin our review, starting with Perek Aleph. The style in which we'll review, since we learned this already, is to just run through the psukim and then give a sum up, because the deeper ideas are something that, again, we've already spoken about. Shir HaShirim Asher L'Shlomo, the song that includes all songs, a song being above thought, in our relationship to Hashem, who's called Shlomo, who's called the one to whom peace is. So it's a song of attachment between us and Hashem. Yishakeni Menishikot Pihu, he kissed me with the kisses of his lips. This is a reference to the 10 Commandments, which we heard directly from Hashem's mouth. There are two kinds of commandments. I'm Hashem your God, and have no other gods before me. Those are the two kisses, which parallel the kiss of connection. I'm Hashem, I'm connected. And the kiss of exclusivity. Have no other gods before me. And your love, your attachment, was greater than wine, was greater than any of the secret realities that we have within us that give us spiritual delight. L'reach shmanecha tovim, the smell of your fragrant oils were good. Shemen tuach shemecha, outpoured oil is your name. Al ken alamot ehavucha, ahevucha, and therefore the young women love you. At that time, your spirituality, so to speak, became part of us the same way. If somebody touches outpoured fragrant oil, it's on their body. The nations of the world who are compared to young women, to virgins, while we're compared to the wife, the married woman, they smell something of your spiritual glory and beauty, and they want it. They want closeness. So they come to us. Mashcheni acharecha. We ask Hashem, Draw me afterwards, narutza, and they'll all run. Havienu hamelech hadarav. The king brings me to his rooms. Hashem brings us to his chamber, to a secret place. Nagila v'nismach habach, and there we'll all have joy, and we'll all have happiness with you. The parable being that when the queen opens the door as she goes into the king's bedroom, all of her serving women, the ones who are holding her train, the others, they get a glimpse of the king that they would never get had she not opened the door. Similarly, the more intimate our relationship is with Hashem, the more access the nations of the world have to knowing him. Naskira dodecha miyayin, and will remark that your love is greater than wine. Mesharim ahevucha, and those who love truth will love you. Meaning the nations who love truth